What's up, guys? We're doing an exhaust today. We have an MBRP axle back that we are going to be installing on Jesse's SS. Nice looking car. This should give it a nice fun character to the exhaust. Before we get started, let's do a good before clip. It's a little too quiet for me. Let's cut the mufflers off of our 6th-Gen. So let's get everything loose. We have exhaust hangers that we have to loosen. And in the back, we're going to physically unbolt this exhaust hanger and remove that outside of the car so that it installs on the rest of the exhaust system a little bit easier. For these under the car, it helps just to spray some penetrating lubricant right inside of the boot where you're going to be taking the tab out. The easiest way to slip these out are to use a long, thin screwdriver and sneak them in between the little bar on the exhaust hanger and the actual rubber of the hanger, and work them over the little nub on the back of the end of the hanger. Easy as that. This car is equipped with an electric exhaust bypass valve that lets the muffler open up wider and be louder in different conditions. So to get the muffler down, we're going to have to remove the electrical connector for the motor on both sides. This is a standard connector. You take out the gray tab by lifting it on the side that we're seeing at the front right now, and then pulling it at the back. After that, we'll be able to just depress the tab and pull it off of the motor to remove it. On the other side, not quite as easy to get to. It's kind of way back up in there. It'll probably be easier to just remove the motor itself and then unclip the connector after that on the passenger side. Got the passenger actuator motor out and disconnected. That was super easy. These are 10 mils. And I also have the hangers on the back loosened. Those are going to be 15s on both sides. This side, I was able to really easily get the connector off. So next up, we are going to be cutting the exhaust back here. I'll show you how I mark that real quick. The next step of this process is to cut the exhaust at the point even with the rear vertical surface of the rear subframe. So not this lip, but this surface here. So notice there's a little bit of stick out there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use these hose clamps as kind of a guide to help my Sawzall cut straight. And before that, I'm going to use a little flat piece of metal to kind of mark out where I'm going to want to cut. Now notice this isn't flush with the vertical surface, it's flush with the lip. So we are going to have to mark inboard a little more towards the inside of the car and then use that to line up where our hose clamps are sitting. Here's where we ended up. We're keeping things on the conservative side of being cut flush with the rear vertical surface. It's always easier to cut off a little more if we need to. Both sides are even. Looks like it's going to come out great. We got some great cuts out of the exhaust. Now we're going to pull off the rear exhaust hangers and get the muffler down. All right, well, my favorite part's over. You can't not get excited about cutting the exhaust off of a Camaro. Let's get this bad boy on and see how it sounds. First, let's clean this up a little bit. It has some dirt and stuff that we don't exactly want in our pictures when we're done. Things cleaned up a little bit, and I have the resonator tubes installed. Next, we're going to get to installing the piece that goes over to the exhaust opening so we can install some tips. Got the rearmost pipes installed. Now I'm going to lower the car to eye level or a little bit under so I can start lining up the tips. We've got the tips installed. This side needs to be lifted up when we go to finally assemble things. This one looks like it needs to come out just a little bit and have a little bit of an angle adjustment. So we're going to get under the car and work on that. It's a 15 millimeter socket to tighten everything down, get it lined up. Always helps to have an assistant to kind of tell you where things are when you're clamping things down. This install came out well. We can see the tips start to fade away into the bumper at the same point on both sides. That's one of the ways that you can ensure that everything's even. I like the way they look. fitment came out pretty well. The pipes, since they enter the exhaust at the factory location, they're still a little low, but it's not going to cause you any problems. Next, we're going to get to installing the exhaust valve motors into the bumper cover so that they don't throw a code. These are super simple to install. You take off the 7mm bolts that hold the heat shield on, connect this in with the electrical connector hanging up there, and then you just slip this bottom tab under where these two bolts go through. See how that sounds. Let's hear how this thing sounds.